So, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, delighted to participate in this sixth edition of the Munich Cybersecurity Conference. Sorry for the delay. Lufthansa was 3.5 hours late, but here we are, now, more secure, resilient digital society. What a topic and what a challenge. Not so long ago, cybersecurity was considered as a technical issue by many businesses. Some governments used to treat it solely as a subset of national security. Today, it is a pressing global challenge with extensive social and economic implications, requiring collective actions by governments, companies, and the public. I therefore congratulate the organizers for getting us all together here today. Now, the world is becoming increasingly dependent on digital technologies. While this may be self-evident, it's our job at the OECD to measure the digital transformation, understand the implications, and recommend public policy approaches that are appropriate for this transformation. In 2018, 64% actually of internet users in OECD countries made online purchases. 73% used social networks. 68% used online banking. So a very significant increase over, this grows exponentially. So we're in an economy that is increasingly digitalized, and we should act accordingly. We are now confronted with a very big challenge, for example, on how to tax the digital economy. Not the digital companies, by the way, but the digital economy. And to the extent that it is becoming increasingly digitalized, of course, ministers of finance are seeing their taxable base shrink unless we actually get a way to do it. So everywhere you see the process is generating challenges. In addition, the digital transformation is touching our lives in new ways. The digitalization of election systems. Here, Christy was mentioning some of the challenges that come up, and you were mentioning, Tyson, the question of, how do we deal with democracy in the face of digitalization? Healthcare, smart homes, connected cars. This whole transformation, despite being full of promises, also makes us more and more dependent and to some extent vulnerable to digital security threats. The WannaCry, the NotPetya attacks in 2017, for example, showed how the successful exploitation of a vulnerability in a single product can actually paralyze global firms and lead to billions of damages, billions of dollars in damages, and threaten critical infrastructures, but also have direct human impact. Digital security incidents like these have taught us a lot over the years. Businesses have realized that digital security needs to move up from the IT team to the boardroom. Policymakers recognize the need for digital security to become a whole-of-government priority, with integrated strategies that encourage digital security innovation, develop relevant skills, and empower small and medium enterprises and individuals. These are marks of progress, and they're welcome. But the mission to build a safer, more resilient digital world must advance and keep pace with the change of the digital transformation itself. And it's a rapid phase. I can say, typically the regulators are always kind of chasing the regulated, okay? In this business, by the time the regulators arrive, the regulated are gone. You don't even see the dust that they left. So we always take principles. We always take broad brushstrokes rather than try to be very specific in the regulatory approach, simply because we are convinced at the OECD, no matter what when we advise our member countries, we say, listen, there's absolutely nothing you can do in terms of the very detailed regulation. But basically, if you have a set of principles and you have a framework, then you will do better in terms of seeing whether it fits or it doesn't fit. Now, artificial intelligence, for example, has an immense potential to improve the well-being of people, help solve some of the major challenges of our times, but it can also enhance digital security by detecting anomalies. It also comes, however, with new risks. For example, researchers have shown that data can be poisoned to deceive an AI system. Now, are we ready for this type of challenge? Where should we start? The principles adopted last year by the OECD and actually were then borrowed, it's an elegant word, by the G20. We were delighted that they took them as theirs. We're happy that they adopted those same principles. And now it's called the G20 principles, which is, we work with the G20 very closely all the time. But they recommend that AI systems be secure, safe, throughout their entire life cycles, that traceability of outcomes be ensured, and that a systematic risk management approach be applied. There's an urgent need to implement these principles and to address emerging threats such as deepfakes and misinformation. Now, failing and learning from our mistakes is one of the most important success factors in developing businesses. Actually, it's a very important success factor in life. Risk-taking and economic success go hand in hand. Now, as we recognize in our 2015 recommendation on digital security risk management, when I say recommendation, it looks like, well, we're saying that's a good idea. It says in the OECD, it has a kind of a legal implication. It's the highest level of things. It becomes kind of mandatory, and everybody, all the members should adopt it. And this is when you sign on to it. It's kind of a big, it's a big R, capital R. So the recommendation on digital security risk management. The objective was to build a resilient digital society, not to eliminate risks entirely. We believe this is simply impossible, but to manage risks, to reduce them to an acceptable level. Smart products are not smart enough to be 100% safe. Attacks will happen, and some of the attacks may be successful. What matters is to be prepared to detect that the attacks actually happened and respond adequately. So resilience, our ability to ensure continuity, recover from hardships, should be top of mind. A recent survey showed that 27% of organizations suffered security breaches because of an unpatched vulnerability. That means the problem wasn't fixed. Many products, including maybe your smartphones, and continue to be used after their end of life. And this means that the manufacturer no longer provides technical support, including the security updates. So after that, you're kind of, you're vulnerable. And it means, therefore, that, criminals never sleep. They never give up. They just keep trying. So criminals will continue to attack relentlessly, and you no longer have the defense. And you probably are not even aware. So with the number of connected devices expected to reach, 20 billion? I think it's almost a cliche by now this year. The end-of-life challenge is literally a ticking time bomb. Now, with the advancement of the Internet of Things and cyber-physical systems, successful attacks will also increasingly impact human safety because it's about things, not just about information. For connected pacemakers, autonomous vehicles, for example, things that are there that, well, when you're talking failing safe, means, failed safe means that you live. And that if you fail, you don't. It's a life or death issue. In many cases, products are not secure enough. Why? Well, is it only because of the technology? Our current work shows that the market often fails to provide enough incentives across economic actors. In response, some governments are developing labels with the cooperation of the private sector to increase transparency, promote security as a factor that actually differentiates products in the market. We at the OECD, we're trying to help governments build more secure, more resilient societies and economies. Actually, since the Munich Cyber Security Conference was first launched, the OECD developed international legal instruments on digital security. In 2015, we adopted the, again, recommendation on digital security risk management for economic and social prosperity. It was a very long name, not very sticky, but you get the gist of what it was about. In 2019, because our bestseller ever was one about obesity, big fat research about obesity. And somebody, everybody said, but somebody had this brilliant idea of calling it fit, not fat. And it sold like crazy. It's still selling. It was published 10 years ago. So the title is important. This we did not get a very sexy title, but anyway, the content is very important here. In 2019, we actually adopted another recommendation, the recommendation on digital security of critical activities. It calls for sustainable and trust-based partnerships among all stakeholders. We also launched at the OECD the Global Forum on Digital Security for Prosperity, which is connected to this recommendation, which connects technical experts with policy leaders to focus on the economic and social aspects of digital security. We met in London last year to identify successful strategies to encourage digital security innovation. Next week, experts will meet at the OECD in Paris to identify and discuss best practices in product security and the responsible management of vulnerabilities. And we will actually meet again later this year in Israel. So I invite you to join us there. And next year, we will review our guidelines on cryptography policy. Cryptography policy, these were old. Now, they were adopted in 97. So it's kind of anything that is adopted in 97 in this kind of context is like, ancient history. But we kind of upgraded them and updated them, and there's these cryptography policies or these guidelines, they make the first international consensus on the deregulation of cryptography, which, as you know, is a foundational best practice to enhance the security of digital communications and transactions. And we're continuing to develop it and to modernize it, to upgrade it, to update it. Now, stepping back, we should be asking ourselves a simple question. Is digital security improving? Well, the answer is complex. Lord Kelvin said, if you cannot measure it, you cannot improve it. So our challenge is to move from anecdote to building a very strong evidence base. This is our mandate. But to gather data, we need more involvement from businesses and from governments. So, dear friends, as was the last message that Christy shared with us a moment ago, she said, you know, we need to do it with you. In this particular case, to build these databases, to deal this information, to build, these common defenses, we do need to join forces. From innovative business leaders, courageous policymakers, the technical community, already many of you are acting brave. You're championing digital security across companies, sectors, countries. You even get paid for it, which is a good idea. So what I say is, let's help each other. You know, we advise governments. The problem that advising governments is you're supposed to know more than they do. And on this business, every day things are happening so fast. You are making changes so fast that we are finding it very, very difficult to catch up with you. But at the same time, we again have to tell what the government should be doing with the digital transformation. Now, the Paris call for trust and security in cyberspace and the Charter of Trust launched here at the Munich Security Conference 2 years ago are great examples of what stakeholders can achieve if they act together. So let's work together, learning from our country's successes, learning from our country's mistakes, identifying and sharing best practices, designing evidence-based policies and regulations. In the end, it's the OECD's mission. So I wish you all a great conference. Thank you very much.